Hello everyone, LVD here. In today's video I will provide an introduction to the Explorer format on MTG Arena. How does a format relate to the tabletop format of Pioneer, which cards are legal in Explorer, and what are some of the most popular archetypes. These questions and more will be answered in this video, so we can get you started with this fun and competitive format. Explorer and Pioneer are both known as constructed formats, where you build your deck with any cards you have that are legal in it. Constructed decks can have up to 4 of any card in their combined deck and sideboard, with the exception of basic lands, where there's no limit. There's a minimum deck size of 60 cards and up to 15 cards in your sideboard. Explorer and Pioneer are also both non-rotating Magic formats. This means that any cards that are added to the format will remain legal forever, so you don't have to worry about any of your cards rotating out as time goes on. Explorer and Pioneer are very closely related, but there are some subtle differences. Explorer is only played digitally on MTG Arena and is derived from a Pioneer, so let's talk about that one first. Pioneer is a fan-favorite format in Paper Magic, covering cards released from the set Return to Ravnica onwards. So any set that normally passes through Standard will be available in Pioneer. Therefore, it aims to be more powerful than Standard, but less powerful than older formats such as Modern or Legacy. Pioneer serves the much-needed role of a format where you can use your Standard cards after rotation. With the inception of Pioneer, the decision was made to exclude the 5 fetch lands from the set Cans of Tarkir, to further differentiate it from the modern format and to make games a little bit snappier with less shuffling involved. Now that we have a better idea what Pioneer entails, how does it differ from Explorer? Explorer lets you use every card available on Arena that's currently legal in Pioneer. But since Arena only started around the standard release of the original Ixalan, not every Pioneer card exists on Arena yet. However, through various remastered sets and anthology expansions, the developers have retroactively added a lot of the cards on Arena that routinely see play in competitive Pioneer decks. So if you're a fan of some older and more obscure cards that are available in Pioneer, you may not be able to find them in Explorer just yet. So in essence, Explorer is a slightly smaller format compared to Pioneer, since there are fewer cards, but the competitive metagame looks almost identical. One of the perks of being available on MTG Arena is that Explorer supports both the traditional best-of-3 experience with sideboarding, like you're used to in tabletop Magic, but for those that prefer faster-paced games, you can also play the more popular best-of-1 format, where you don't need to worry about bringing a sideboard. Non-rotating formats have a lot of advantages. Although as more powerful cards and synergies keep being introduced, there is one tool that keeps the format from getting too far out of hand: the ban hammer. Every few months, the developers will chime in on the health of the format and make adjustments when needed. Here's a brief history of the Pioneer banned list, which also applies to Explorer. October 2019. Pioneer is introduced as a format, so the 5 fetch lands, Bloodstained Mire, Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta, Windswept Heath, and Wooded Foothills are banned. November 2019. Felidar Guardian, Leyline of Abundance, and Oath of Nissa are banned. Guardian was part of a 2-card combo with Saheeli Rai, whereas a Leyline of Abundance was powering up the Green Devotion strategies with Nykthos a little bit too quickly. Oath of Nissa was also part of that deck, but would later be unbanned. Later that month, Veil of Summer was also banned, a ubiquitous sideboard card that does a little bit too much for just 1 mana. December 2019. Field of the Dead, Once Upon a Time, and Smuggler's Copter are banned. Field of the Dead set up powerful ramp strategies that could then generate an army of zombie tokens without having to worry too much about opposing interaction. Once Upon a Time made decks too consistent and got banned in multiple formats. Smuggler's Copter was played in various aggro strategies, although would also later be unbanned. Later that month, Oko, Thief of Crowns, and Nexus of Fate are also banned. Oko doesn't need an introduction, the card is banned in most formats. Nexus of Fate was played in Wilderness Reclamation decks that could then generate a lot of extra mana and quickly take every turn for the rest of the game. July 2020, Oath of Nissa is finally unbanned again. August 2020, Inverter of Truth, Kethis the Hidden Hand, Underworld Breach, and Walking Ballista are all banned. Inverter set up a powerful 2-card combo with either Jace Wielder of Mysteries or Thassa's Oracle to win the game. Kethis and Underworld Breach were both graveyard combo enablers, which allowed you to combo pretty quickly and consistently. Walking Ballista was also part of a 2-card combo with Heliod Sun-Crowned, giving it lifelink and dealing infinite damage. February 2021, Balustrade Spy, Teferi Time Raveler, Undercity Informer, Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath, and Wilderness Reclamation are all banned. Uro is another card that is banned in various formats for being a little bit too powerful. Teferi isn't the most fun card to play against and was prominently featured in Bring to Light strategies. Informer and Spy were both part of combo decks that didn't run any actual lands and were therefore able to mill their entire library to set up various win conditions. And Wilderness Reclamation was a powerful engine that essentially doubled the controller's mana. March 2022, Lurrus of the Dream Den is banned, the most powerful companion, also banned in several formats. June 2022, Expressive Iteration and Winota Joiner of Forces are banned. Iteration was powering up blue-red strategies, including the Arclight Phoenix decks, which had already a lot going for them. Winota set up some pretty unhealthy play sequences, cheating expensive cards into play for free. December 2023, Karn the Great Creator and Geological Appraiser are banned, whereas Smuggler Sculptor is unbanned. Karn was an important finisher for Green Devotion strategies, which had been dominant for a long time. Geological Appraiser was essentially a 1-card combo, so it also had to go. August 2024, Amalia Benavides Aguirre and Sorin Imperious Bloodlord are banned. Amalia was part of a dominant life gain combo deck that could already combo on turn 3 with too much consistency. Sorin cheating Vein Rippers into play was one of the most dominant strategies in the format. Now, should any of the cards in your Arena collection get banned in the future, you can expect the corresponding wild cards to be added to your collection, while you can perhaps still use those cards in other formats. The great thing about Arena is that it can automatically filter out the cards that are legal in Explorer. Simply open up a new deck in the deck builder and select Explorer from the drop-down list. In this section, I will discuss some of the most popular decks that you might encounter in Explorer. Blue-Red or Izzet Phoenix. This deck's main focus is putting Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard and then casting 3 instants or sorceries in 1 turn to get every Phoenix back. Treasure Cruise fuels the deck as a very cheap way to draw 3 by exiling cards from the graveyard using the Delve mechanic. Cheap removal spells like Lightning Axe help you discard the Phoenix if it's stuck in your hand while answering the board. Red-Black or Rakdos Midrange. A deck playing the best 1-mana interaction that Black has to offer. Thoughtseize and Fatal Push are emblematic cards in the format, providing hand disruption and efficient removal. Bloodtithe Harvester is another staple in these mid-range decks as a threat that also doubles up as interaction. Fable of the Mirror Breaker may have been retired from Standard, but it's still a force in this deck, smoothing out draws, generating extra mana, and eventually transforming into a reflection of Kiki-Jiki. This creature loves to be paired with Bloodtithe Harvester to repeatedly mow down opposing creatures while stacking up your blood token reserves. Unholy Annex, paired with additional demons, has also found a nice home in this archetype, and you can usually expect Sheoldred the Apocalypse to show up as well. It has great synergy with all your card draw effects, while punishing the opponent for doing the same. There's no creatures to get back, just a full graveyard of Thoughtseize, kind of funny to see. A red-black or Rakdos Prowess. While sharing the same colors as the midrange variant, this deck shares very few non-land cards. Instead, it plays much closer to a mono-red aggro deck, taking advantage of aggressive creatures like Monastery Swiftspear, Emberheart Challenger, and Slickshot Show-Off. These all come down with haste and benefit from casting lots of cheap non-creature spells. Kumano faces Kakazan is another one of those all-time great red cards that has found a nice home in these decks post-rotation. You can also expect to face additional mouse synergies, such as Heartfire Hero and Manifold Mouse, to quickly build up a huge double-striking threat. The reason this deck dips into black is mostly for Callous Sellsword in the main deck, providing the deck with additional reach to close out games, especially when paired with Heartfire Hero, which will deal additional damage on the way out. This gives the deck a lot of extra mileage out of its instant speed pump spells like Infuriate and a Monstrous Rage. In best of 3 games, the deck gets access to efficient black disruption that we've seen in Rakdos Midrange decks. Thoughtseize can be great versus combo and control strategies, whereas Fatal Push can slow down other aggressive decks. That's 10 more damage. And there we have it. Green-White or Selesnya Company. This creature deck plays green for mana acceleration, 1-drops such as Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic, to then speed up casting its signature card, Collected Company. To maximize the impact of this card, you'll see lots of great 3-mana creatures. Enduring Innocence gives the deck another reliable source of card advantage, and with creatures entering the battlefield at instant speed, it can also potentially draw during the opponent's turn. Aven Interrupter or Werefox Bodyguard also reinforce this plan by having flash and offering instant speed disruption for spells and creatures alike. Skyclave Apparition is another staple in this archetype, giving you a flexible answer to opposing non-land permanents. There are also Angel variants of this deck that have a very similar core of Elves and Collected Company, but make room for additional Angels and life gain synergies to fill out the deck. Jada, Font of Hope, makes mana to cast Angel spells while providing +1/+1 counters to the team, while Bishop of Wings and Righteous Valkyrie are a great way to gain life to set up Resplendent Angel to make additional Angel tokens. This deck can gain a lot of life very quickly while building up a huge flying army. And I'll cast a Company now in case we find Resplendent Angel, so we can immediately make a token. And yeah, there's Resplendent Angel plus maybe a Righteous Valkyrie at this stage. And that should do it. Black, Red, Green or Jund Sacrifice. Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven combine to form a powerful sacrifice engine to drain the opponent for 1. Add Mayhem Devil into the mix, and now every familiar or food token that gets sacrificed also deals 1 additional damage to any target. Scavenger's Talent has also found a nice home in this deck as another way to generate food and ultimately return Igra, Eater of All, from the graveyard to potentially win the game on the spot if you have 2 Cauldron Familiars in circulation, as they now also count as food that can be sacrificed to its own ability. Opponent did indeed have the Leyline Binding, but yeah. What are you gonna exile? Familiar, we just respond by sacking it. And our opponent explodes, get to both mill them and drain them to death. 5-color Niv Mizzet Bring to Light. This multicolored deck aims to ramp out Bring to Light, which if cast with 5 different colors of mana, can then find Niv Mizzet Reborn. The deck is set up in such a way that it has a lot of 2-colored cards that Niv Mizzet can find when it enters the battlefield, generating massive amounts of card advantage. It can afford to run a lot of situational one-off cards, as Bring to Light also doubles up as a tutor effect to immediately cast whatever card it searches up. Sylvan Caryatids is a great way to ramp and fix your colors, while Up the Beanstalk provides additional card advantage. Leyline Binding can often be cast for just 1 mana, thanks to all the tri-lands in the mana base, providing multiple basic land types for Domain. Even when it's cast for just 1 mana, Binding will still draw off every Up the Beanstalk in play. Vanishing Verse is often a 4-off as a flexible removal spell that can also be found with Niv-Mizzet Reborn. Blue-White or Azorius Control. Counterspells, removal, and planeswalkers are often a recipe for success. This deck likes to keep up mana for instant speed interaction. No More Lies and Dovin's Veto are great multicolored counterspells. Supreme Verdict is a way to reset the board if it gets too much out of hand, while Memory Deluge keeps your hand full and gives you additional ways to spend your mana in the late game by flashing it back out of the graveyard. March of Otherworldly Light is a flexible answer that can be cast on the cheap when needed, and the planeswalkers include Narset, Parter of Veils, and Teferi, Hero of Dominaria for additional card advantage, while the Wandering Emperor is another instant speed answer that you can play to eventually take over. Alright, never mind, found the white source, lockdown. Also gets rid of my own Omen of the Sea, but Omen is mostly here as an extra card we can give to the opponent with Coveted Falcon to draw an extra card. And yeah, our opponent has seen enough. Lotus Field combo. This deck is built around a land called Lotus Field. Once in play, it can tap to generate 3 mana. The goal is usually to get a second copy of Lotus Field in play by copying it with Thespian's Stage, therefore not having to sacrifice additional lands. Once you have 2 copies of Lotus Field in play, you can generate a lot of additional mana and cards with effects like Pore Over the Pages, Hidden Strings, and Vizier of Tumbling Sands. Eventually, Lear, Disciple of the Drowned, lets you recycle everything out of the graveyard, and once the deck accumulates enough resources and mana, it can end the game in a variety of ways. And we can cast a free Pore Over the Pages to make more mana with Lotus Field. Or we can just naturally draw into Approach, of course. But we can flashback Acquisition just to show how it works. Get a card from library now. Get Approach. Cast Approach. Alright, easy enough. A Greasefang Parhelion. There have been quite a few variations of this deck over the years, but the core idea is to put Parhelion 2 into the graveyard and then follow it up with Greasefang Okiba Boss to bring the 8-mana vehicle back out of the graveyard with haste, crew it with Greasefang itself, and then immediately attack the opponent. This generates a pair of Angel tokens that will stick around to hopefully close out the game on the following turn, while Parhelion goes back into your hand. So that's another advantage of Lightning Axe over Fatal Push, is using it as a discard outlet. And our opponent's gonna need something pretty special to come back from this. Down to 5 life, facing 2 4/4 Angels. Enigmatic Incarnation. This is a multicolored enchantment deck centered around the namesake card. Enigmatic Incarnation lets you sacrifice enchantments to tutor up creatures out of your deck and put them straight onto the battlefield. Another deck that's powered by the Beanstalk and Leyline Binding engine, sacrificing a Binding with Incarnation lets you immediately get a 7-drop creature like Atraxa to take over the game. The Overlords from Duskmourn also play very nicely in this deck. Overlord of the Hauntwoods enables a 1-mana Leyline Binding all by itself, while also drawing with your Beanstalks, even when impended. And then afterwards, the Overlord can be sacrificed and get yourself a 6-mana creature.
This isn't a fight.
Another Binding, untapped land, artifacts, and Zur can be our creature. While this list included 10 of the most popular decks in Explore, it still feels like we've barely scratched the surface, so there's a lot of viable strategies in the format. An additional note on companions. While they are no longer in Standard, you can still see companions being played in Explore. These offer decks a little bit of extra power in the late game by giving you access to an additional creature that you can put into your hand if you pay 3 mana, assuming your deck meets their deck building restriction. Since companions are announced at the start of the game, they can also provide a little bit of information that can help inform your mulligan decision. For instance, if you see Kahira the Orphan Guard, there's a good chance your opponent is playing a creatureless control deck that automatically meets its condition, so maybe you don't want to keep a hand full of spot removal spells, since those are going to be quite poor in the control matchup. Gigantha is the most widespread companion and therefore provides the least amount of information, but at least you'll know that you don't have to play around any double cost cards. Yorion is often played in Enigmatic Incarnation decks, whereas Keruga, the Macro Sage, can point towards the Quintorius Kant Discover combo deck. As you can see, Explorer is a very diverse format that supports every playstyle imaginable, from aggro to midrange to combo and control. There's something here for everyone. Taking the time to learn the ins and outs of your deck can also be incredibly rewarding. So armed with all this new knowledge, go forth and conquer the Explorer ladder on MTG Arena. Or if you're like me, have fun brewing up crazy decks that combine synergies from sets past and present. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.